Welcome everybody to the Fire Talk live stream today. We didn't get a chance to recap the last series against the Braves. Everyone knows it kind of got cut short. Gonna have to wait. I think is it August or September that series is going to be finished up? September, yeah. So gonna have to wait for a while, but just gonna kind of preview this next series, recap it up a little bit, and then any questions too, because I know that the trade deadline is definitely on everyone's mind right now. But Isaac, you want to start off and just talk about this Brave series?
Unfortunately cut short. Chris Paddock was kind of the guy that I think I was paying attention to the most just because he's had some bad outings recently. He went out there through 5 really good innings, and it's not that he was getting a lot of strikeouts or anything. I think he left the game with only 2 strikeouts, but he was pitching to contact. He was doing it very well, and along with the defense, making some really good plays behind him. So really good to see Chris Paddock went out there, had a really solid outing. Fernando hits his 29th home run. We know that he's leading the league, or not the league, the NL in the home run category. That's always really good to see. Manny's staying hot. Manny's batting, I think it's around 350 or 360 in the month of July, and probably around 330 ever since the start of June with 10 home runs as well. So, there's a bunch of guys in this lineup right now that are staying hot. Defense is playing great. Obviously, Brave series cut short. We don't have too much to talk about the Brave series. Reese Neer got the start in the last game, and I think he kind of got taken out a little early. He was kind of allowing a lot of runs, but he's not a starter in this rotation. It's expected for him to allow a couple runs.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know why Tingler took out Paddock there. He was only at 77 pitches at 5 innings. You got to leave him in there. We've always talked about how much the bullpen is taxed and that he needs longer outings from these guys. But you know what? He pulls Paddock at 77 pitches after a really good outing. One person that we probably should mention is Hassan Kim. Some great defensive plays. He comes up clutch with the double. He gets a sac fly. He's proven that, he really does belong in the league and everything. So, great series cut short, but moving on to the next.
Yeah, I like you bring up Hassan Kim, but didn't even bring up his nap in between the doubleheader. That was pretty funny. Stellar game from him. I think I tweeted out that he looked like an everyday starter in this series or in the doubleheader. That was great to see. We've talked about like should Kim get sent. I mean, and he can't get sent down because of his contract, but like could he? And we had discussed like, hey, he could get sent down, but that would be only like developmental reasons. Like him as a bench piece, he's a very valuable piece, and I think that this was a prime example of that, where he gets put into back-to-back games in the doubleheader, and makes plays in both of them, defensively and offensively. Like he has the chance to be a really special player. Hopefully, he's able to develop with the lack of playing time. Someone just said Kim has to get more playing time. I mean, I don't know where he's going to get it. That's the problem. I would like to see him out there more. And also, I would like him to consistently be the first bat off the bench, too, because sometimes he won't even come in as a pinch hitter, which I don't really care for as much. Once the DH comes, then, that's potentially a spot that he'll have there in the infield. And then I had someone else brought up Austin Nola. He got called up, and Webster Rivas got sent down. And they basically said Webster Rivas did an admirable job, and I could not agree more. Guy that was, an 11-time minor leaguer, 11-year minor leaguer, gets a chance to get called up to the pros, and he did a fantastic job behind the plate. Also had a couple sweet moments, 2 home runs, I believe, at least 2 I can remember. And then, he was still getting on base. I know he didn't hit for a lot of average, but he was getting on base at a decent clip, and I think he did a really good job, getting called up and being able to execute with this pitching staff. So I think that's, a guy that really needs to get some praise, because that was a really good job that he did. But this doubleheader, it was a little bit frustrating that it didn't get finished. I was really hoping that the Padres would win both those games, and then potentially, it would have been a Dodgers loss and gained a game and a half on them. Wasn't the case, but overall, I think just going to kind of have to wait for this series. But what do you guys have for this Marlins series?
Oh, well, 4-game series on the road after, I don't even know how much time they had to, rest after having to stay in Atlanta for so long. So who knows how that's going to go. Blake Snell's going today, I believe. So going to be interesting how he does on the road, seeing if, after the All-Star break, after that time on the IL, how he starts recovering on the road, how he starts handling himself. And, if he starts to bounce back on the road, because we know he has some really good home outings, but what's really driving up his ERA is those road outings, such as, the Pirates outing. And I forgot what he's had some really bad the Mets outing, he's had some really bad outings on the road. So my headliner is going to be Blake Snell today. We're not going to face Alcantara in this series. I don't know what's going on with the Marlins recently. I don't know their record or anything. I just know they're not a very good team, I think. Hopefully Blake Snell does good today. Hopefully the rest of our pitchers do good too. This was the first time we got 5 really solid outings from a pitcher in a while from Chris Paddock. And, hopefully that continues here soon.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm hoping Snell does have a good game today because you mentioned the home and road splits. Florida could be like a home environment to him since he did pitch in Tampa Bay for so long. So hopefully, that doesn't really affect him, being on the road because you pitched in Florida a bunch of years. So, other than that, we need to see some of our other guys just seriously pitch 5 innings with maybe 2 earned runs. At least 5. We need them to start going 6 innings because come September, our bullpen is going to be completely diminished, and is with some people coming back. And maybe we could see more of what Lamet is going to be like because he did say that he's going to be like shorter outings. So maybe that means he's going to get some more high leverage situations at the end of the games. Or he's going to come in, after a guy finishes 5 innings and pitches 2 or 3 innings. We really don't know what that means yet, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think another good thing that we could bring up is Ryan Weathers. He's going to be starting. I believe he's starting Saturday, and Musgrove starting Friday. They could be flip-flop, but I think that's what it is. I'm really, really happy that Ryan Weathers is back. I think it was scared everyone a little bit. I didn't really know if that was going to be the case. Luckily, the Padres kind of lucked out with all these injuries and sicknesses because, what was it, a week ago we were talking about, we have no idea what this pitching staff's going to look like. Snell could still be gone for a while. Darvish could still be gone for a while. And we had no idea when Weathers would be potentially coming back and how severe the injury was. So get pretty lucky in all of those. Now the rotation's almost all the way back. Lamet is like that guy that's not going to come back in the rotation, but they've already said he's going to the bullpen. So I think us 3 like that. I know there's some people that feel like it's kind of wasting Lamet. And then there's other people. Oh, so Nelson Cruz to the Rays apparently also, guys. I don't know if you saw that in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
Exciting stuff. By the way, Nelson Cruz, I think that when the DH is implemented in NL, that's like the guy I'm going to completely vouch for that the Padres go after hard because he's the best DH, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
In terms of like the price for him, but that's a good pickup for the Rays. I don't know what else do you guys have on the series?
Nothing much. I just know Miami's a pretty ginormous ballpark if I remember correctly. So hopefully, some of these guys are still able to go deep. Weather's coming back. That's going to be huge. We saw his injury, and when he came out, he looked like he was in pretty. It looks like he was in gruesome pain. So we didn't know what was the status on that injury. I would assume some people thought he'd be out for the year at least, and that his trade value would diminish. But I don't know if the Padres are really even looking to trade him anymore. I don't know what's going on with all of that, but hopefully he has a really good start. I think a solid 5 innings for him would be huge against a lineup that's not very strong. Let's see, who do I think needs to have a good series? I think I'd love to get Hassan Kim some more at bats. He's really starting to hold his own in the league. He's really starting to catch up to the velocity, and all his hits he's such a good timely hitter recently. He's coming up in a lot of big situations and coming through. But I don't even know if there's anyone that needs to improve because this lineup is so hot right now. You look from top to bottom. Hosmer's even doing really well. Jake is, doing really well. Tatis is playing at MVP level. Machado is batting over 300 the past couple months. Pham's doing his thing. Grisham needs to bounce back a little bit. But Myers is doing his thing. So from top to bottom, they're all doing their thing, and hopefully that keeps up.
Yeah, and on the mound for tonight is Bender. He is a right-handed pitcher and doesn't look like he's had a lot of innings pitched. 31 innings, so it looks like he's a call-up. Yeah, honestly, Kim does need to get more at bats. He's starting to come around with the bat. His defense plays almost everywhere in the infield. Maybe we'd like to see him get some reps at first base. Who knows? Just having him anywhere in the infield is just such a great help defensively. Um, the Marlins are such a weird team. They'll go on stretches of dominance and then suck. And then they're missing Sandy Alcantara. He might pitch in 2 days. For the most part, the rotation has been set except for one day, so maybe they're hoping he can come back by then. And hopefully we can get a better look at Starling Marte. Hopefully the Padres are scouting him just in case we do need another outfielder or depth in the outfield and a guy that can play all three positions. I like Starling Marte, so hopefully that happens.
I was gonna bring up Starling Marte because he's been rumored to the Giants a ton, so potentially see him kind of before if a trade potentially happens, because there's been a lot of smoke around his name going to San Francisco. Got another thing in the chat: over under 4 2/3 inning for Blake Snell. I feel like you got to go under if it's on the road. That's where I'm at, like under on the road, over on the home games, because it's been tough.
I think just for trying to be a little more confident in the guy, because I said in the chat I have no evidence, no statistical proof that he will bounce back, but I do think he's going to bounce back somewhat in some sort of capacity towards the second half of the season. So I'll go the over in 4 2/3 just because I want to see him start, and obviously I want and I think is a totally different thing, but I'm hoping to see him go 4 2/3. That's what we want, so I probably go over, I guess.
He's pitching in Florida, the spacious part, and I'm hoping he turns it around. So I'm going over 4 2/3, but going over 6 is a no.
No, hell no.
I don't even think he gets to 5 2/3.
Yeah, I'd be pretty happy seeing him go 5.
If he goes 5, that's a huge win, I feel like, at this point. And hopefully he gets hot, and then into the season we'll be like over under 6 2/3. I would love to see if that's kind of how the conversation changed. Have another comment. We need to put Nola at first, Gallo and right, and Caratini catching. I like that. You save and I mean that doesn't have to be the every single day lineup. Like that can be like the dominant lineup. But if Hosmer's still on this team, I think at the very least, if that's what you go, like what you roll with against lefties, I really like that. Wonder what you guys think. Obviously, you'd have to trade for Gallo too. But I do think that we're going to see Nola more at first than what I think a lot of people are expecting, just because of all the injuries with him. Didn't catch that much in his rehab. Another question here too. Think we might go for Bryant and Kimbrel. I feel like Kimbrel is probably a no. Like he's already been through the Padres organization. The only way I feel like Kimbrel could work out is if the Dodgers or the Giants are pushing heavy for him, and the Padres are going for a different arm, and they feel like they can kind of block one of those teams, which I don't really love that idea for a franchise, like where you're kind of basing your moves off the teams around you. But I could see that kind of going down. Chris Bryant, I would probably guess no, unless they can extend him. And I don't think they're really in a position to do that, especially with a guy like Chris Bryant's caliber. But what are your guys' thoughts on them potentially getting moved to San Diego?
I'd love to see them in a Padres uniform just based off what they're doing this year. Bryant had a really, really, really good start to the season. He was doing really well. I don't think he's doing very well right now, though. He was an all-star, but, Pip, there were some people calling the All-Star game the Sun Stars game because of how many people were out. And, I don't know if you can fit Chris Bryant into that category. I don't know if his stats live up to him being a star anymore. But Craig Kimbrel, I've brought it up before. He will probably be one of the golden boys of the trade deadline. Everyone's going to be looking for that dominant bullpen arm. We saw the Dodgers blow these 2 leads. I think Kenley Jansen just blew two saves in a row against the Giants. So 2 winnable games that he went out there and blew. So it looks like they're going to need a closer, and obviously the Dodgers are one of those organizations that are not afraid to spend money. They're not afraid to go. Obviously, they weren't afraid to go over the luxury tax. They're not afraid to make the big moves. They traded for Manny Machado a couple years ago, so I definitely see them making a pursuit for Craig Kimbrel. As far as Chris Bryant, though, I think I think this lineup that we have right now is in a good state. I don't really know if we need him just because, everyone's playing well. I think the guys off the bench are playing really well right now. And of course, it comes at the trade deadline, but, Profar's coming off the bench, providing some good at-bats. Hassan Kim, dude's a king, like you guys were saying earlier. He's doing great. So hopefully, I'd love to have Kimbrel. I don't know about Bryant.
Yeah, I like Kimbrel. Don't want Bryant. Just because then you're putting a logjam on there's already a logjam there. And he's going to be expensive. So trying to find a position for Bryant on top of everything else and paying him the money and the prospect capital, and then you're going to have to extend them because you're really hoping that 2022 is the magical year. So if you want Bryant to be a part of that, you got to extend them. There's just too many loopholes that you have to fit for Chris Bryant to be there. Kevin Crimble's a great reliever. I do, like someone mentioned, German Marquez. Love the guy. He's been pitching really good as of late. He shut out the Padres recently. So, you know what? He's a really good arm to keep an eye on. And the Rockies kind of sell for dirt cheap. We saw what they gave up or what they got for Arenado. So, I don't think Marquez would cost that much.
Oh, boy. I just see in 2022, Luciano was better than Tatis. Calm down. Come on.
Someone said the only thing we need is a new trainer. Oh God, I feel that for sure. Another person kind of mentioned. I feel like what they really need to go after is pitching, and basically said like Hosmer's going to be here no matter we like it or not. So like might as well kind of like wait to address or like add a bat or something like that until maybe the off season, or even a year down the road, or I don't know when that would be, but to hold off during the deadline and only go after pitching. If the Padres were to only go after pitch, or even if they weren't, like what's like your wish list in terms of positions for the Padres to go after in the pitching department? Because for me, I feel like they need one starter and I think a lot of people want them to go after two guys. If Clevenger is on pace to come back, and he probably will just be a bullpen guy, but they already kind of have their key guys for the playoffs that are going to start games. They have the top four. So if you're adding an arm, that means one of those guys that could be Ryan Weathers gets kind of bumped down to a bullpen spot in the playoffs, and this guy will start. So I don't think you're looking for like a top end elite arm, or at least I don't think the Padres, I don't think that's what they want. I think that they're going to go after one arm that's a solid arm that can be either like a long reliever in the playoffs or be a back end starter in the playoffs. So I think that's the one starter. And then I also think they're going to go after a bullpen piece. But where do you guys think they're going to go after in terms of pitching?
In terms of pitching, they absolutely need a starter. You brought up that they need at least one. Yes, they do need at least one. I think for some people, two is more ideal, just because we're not getting any consistent solid outings out of any of our pitchers right now. I'm set on one though. I think there's a bunch of options out there. Zach Davies, I see, is getting brought up. I'm somewhat on board with that to get Davies back. Zach Davies was easily one of my favorite pitchers when he was with us last year. Went out there, provided some really, really solid innings every single time he was out there. It's just my thing with him is that he's not really a playoff caliber pitcher. I've always said that he'll get you there, but he won't get you to he'll get you to the playoffs, but he won't get you much further than that. Danny Duffy's an option I see. Kenta Maeda is a good option in my opinion. Also, there was one more. Kyle Gibson's kind of been rocky. I don't know how I feel about Kyle. I mean, this year I feel good about Kyle Gibson for sure. I think, he would be a solid pickup this year, but his past years kind of show, he's not a great pitcher. But as far as this year, what he's providing to our team this year, he'd be great. I think he'd be a really solid addition just because I think he might be a little cheaper. But I think at the top of my wish list would probably be a starting pitcher. Kenta Maeda is probably going to be really cheap. And that would probably move Ryan Weathers down to the bullpen, and I think the best thing to do in the playoffs is get Dinelson Lamet and Ryan Weathers out there in the piggyback.
Yeah, my guy, I just had his name. I know I've said Sandy Alcantara a lot. I do like Danny Duffy a lot. I think he probably provides the most, and he can probably be used in a bullpen role too. So those would probably be my two guys. I know a lot of people like Rafael Iglesias coming in for the bullpen because of he's been pretty solid for the Angels. But the problem is I know the Angels are on the verge of contending, and what they need most is pitchers. We all saw that in the draft. They really want to settle their pitching problems, so I don't think they're going to go with any pitchers.
So I just pulled up a comment from Jerry here. If Gallo's the desired player AJ wants, then I think we get Gallo and Gibson. So you guys brought up a lot of arms. Rossell Iglesias, I think you're spot on about that, Chase, in terms of like I don't know if they're going to try to move him. And then the arms that we've consistently brought up, I think, have been Danny Duffy, probably Zach Davies, Gibson, and then Maeda. Out of those guys, I would probably say that that Gibson is the least guy that I'd want to trade out of that group of 4 guys. I would rather, if they want Gallo, I would rather them just go after Gallo and then go after a different starter in a different trade. But how would you guys feel if, all they came away with at the deadline was Gallo and Gibson? Because I feel like a lot of people think that's a possibility. And would you guys be content with that? And obviously we don't know what we're giving, like what the Padres are giving up in this, but say it's like what you view as fair. What would your thoughts be if those were the only guys that were acquired?
The thing is I've seen reports that the Rangers view Joey Gallo as like some sort of top 10 player and that they're going to want a lot for him, even though they literally have no reason to keep holding on to him. They're going to be horrible for years to come, in my opinion. But, they have no reason to hold on to him. I'd love to have Joey Gallo, but for the right price. I don't think giving up, anything crazy like Ryan Weathers or I guess Campusano is okay to give up, but I don't think giving up anything crazy for Joey Gallo would be reasonable. As far as Gibson, though, I was a pretty big fan of adding him, and maybe this is just a bump in the road, but in his past 2 starts, he allowed 5 to Detroit and then 8 to Detroit. So, Detroit's not a very strong lineup, and this is, coincidentally after the whole sticky stuff situation where every pitcher in the league is struggling right now, some more than others. League-wide, I think the ERA is around a 4 ever since it went away, which is horrible. I don't know why pitchers feel the need to use that stuff if they feel they're going to get raked. But, if we've got away with Joey Gallo and Kyle Gibson, I'd say it's a decent deadline. I think we can get away with more than that for cheaper. I think it's a Maeda could be better. I think I'm not a fan of Danny Duffy, but just gonna have to see what goes on. I don't think Kyle Gibson and Joey Gallo is my top priority.
Yeah, I don't think we need Gallo. I just think we need a starting pitcher because then you have your 5. Maybe you throw Weathers and Lamet to piggyback for the 5th spot, and then or Duffy, and you make it like a 6-man. But then once playoff time comes, you can only have 4, and then you throw more guys into the bullpen, and then you don't necessarily need to add another bullpen guy, and you can keep guys that you may have not wanted to get rid of. But you know what? AJ Preller is going to do what AJ Preller does, whether or not we like it or not. So we can only just hope for the best and pray to God that he doesn't get rid of the guys that we wanted.
Can't be.
I wonder if – so I'm just kind of thinking because Daniel has a comment here, and he's basically saying, hey, if they do get a starter, Lamet and Weathers are in the bullpen, most likely in the playoffs. And we talked – it's a 4-man rotation in the playoffs. You're not going to have many more guys. You also have Matt Strom coming back, which was brought up in the chat. He's apparently about to have a rehab outing, and then you also have Dennis Lamet potentially coming back in the next couple weeks. Kind of a wait and see with him, and then also Clevenger. So you have a lot of arms that are going to be coming in, and if you add another starter, that's a lot of arms. So, and also I was just thinking about this because yesterday I saw a lot of people tweeting out why is this team have Reese Neer pitching, Daniel Camarena, all these guys that, are like eat up inning guys. It's because they're saving the other guys. They're going to have so many guys are going to get sent down. Camarena is not going to have a spot on the roster. There's going to be a lot of guys that are going to get sent down when all these guys come back or when they trade for pieces. So I think that I really wonder how many arms they can add because, and someone says you can't have enough. That is true. We have definitely seen that early on in the year. So I'm not going to be upset if they add an arm. Don't get me wrong. But I think some people think like, oh, we need to add 2 arms and a bullpen. Like, okay, 2 of those guys might not even be able to be a part of the playoff roster, or you're going to bump like Matt Strom or someone like that out of that roster. Now, we also don't know like where Clev is at. Like, say Clev is not going to come back. Well, then you have to completely count of him being out. I think that they should kind of go into it not expecting Lamet to be healthy just because he's been so up and down with his injuries. So it is interesting, but I really wonder, like, what is that number of how many arms they realistically can bring in without, completely taking over someone's roster spot that is a good pitcher, because there's a lot of talent on this roster. And, it's just interesting how it's going to play out. And that's why I wonder if that's why they want to go after a guy like Gallo or another bat, because I know you guys don't love the idea. I do like the idea of bringing Gallo in at the right price. That's the big thing. But that's where it's kind of like that's why I don't like Chris Bryant, because it's like half year. But like a guy with control, if they want to get a controllable bat, I understand the vision there. I also think that it's unlikely if they do add a starter that it's anything more than a rental, just because like where is that guy going to be a part? Like how is he going to be a part of the rotation next year? Unless some of these pitchers get moved, which I would also not expect to happen with all the injuries this year. But do you guys think there's like a number that they have to add or not really?
Just one. I think 1 starting pitcher is fair. It'd be really hard to be able to add 2, especially the caliber, the way some of these guys are playing right now. Danny Duffy has a really good ERA, even though he's not pitching many innings. He has a solid ERA. But I think it'd be reasonable to get 1 guy at the deadline, maybe a back end starter like a Kenta Maeda who can throw 5 or 6 innings consistently. I think that'd be fair for us. I really don't think we need a bat at the deadline. I see a couple people saying that as well. Joey Gallo would be a good addition just because he gets on base so much at a really, really high rate. But I don't know what we'd have to give up for him. Matt brought up at the right price. That's definitely fair. I don't think you should pay. I think if you're going to trade with the Rangers, you have a bunch of leverage because the Rangers suck. I don't know how good their farm system is, but Luis Campusano, if we were to give up Campusano, he would shoot up their rankings, maybe to number 2 or 3. I don't know who the number 1 prospect is, so I'm not going to say 1. But I think we have a bunch of leverage in a Rangers trade. But I think 1 starting pitcher is fair. I think 1 starting pitcher is ideal at the deadline, and then maybe a bench bat. But AJ Preller is going to be aggressive at the deadline, and we know that.
I just think a starting pitcher. I don't think we need a bench bat because you have Kim sitting there, you have Profar sitting there for the most part, and then you're going to have Nola or Caratini sitting there on the bench too, which there's 3 pretty quality bats sitting on the bench, and guys already struggling to find time playing, which 2 of them couldn't be impact backs. So I don't think you need a bench piece, but adding a starter wouldn't hurt.
Yeah, like where you're at there. This comment from Sportslight, the Twins got the Rays 10 and 17 prospects. Maybe it's a sign that Barrios is cheaper. I think there's a chance that a lot of guys are cheaper than what we're kind of expecting. Think back on some of the recent trades, especially guys that cost a lot of money, like guys that have big salaries. Nolan Arenado, the Rockies paid part of his contract off and did not get much in return. Of course, we know about the Yu Darvish and Victor Caratini trade for a lot of guys that aren't going to get called up in the next few years here. And I think some of these guys that are more expensive, like there are some teams right now that are struggling for cash. Like that has to be the reason why. But there's a lot of teams that are trying to sell everything. Look at the Cubs as an example. Like they're literally full fire sale. So I wonder if some of these guys are going to be a lot cheaper than we're expecting, and especially more likely than not guys that are on big contracts. And there's a lot of guys too that are on the trade block that aren't necessarily like making a big salary. But I do think that there are some guys that, since the price tag's higher, they're worth so much less. Like they're worth so much less because a lot of teams don't want to bring on additional salary. And what we've seen is that the Padres are one of the handful of teams in Major League Baseball that are willing to do that. So there's a chance that maybe some guy that's has a big deal that isn't quite living up to it is traded to the Padres for almost nothing. So I don't know. Do you guys think there's a chance that happens?
Of course. AJ Preller is willing to bounce on any kind of opportunity that he can take advantage of.
Yeah, absolutely. And I see people talking about Brian Reynolds. It's just, like I said, it's just you have already too many players that play the outfield, finding an everyday spot for Brian Reynolds and everybody else to play at this time. I think you're giving up too much for having too many outfielders. I think
Yeah.
we have enough bats. I think the only real concern is pitching and bullpen.
Should we save Otani too?
And anyone in the league should save Otani. My God, poor guy.
Let's see. How do we think Snell will do today? We did it over Ace. We did it over under earlier. I took the under on 4 2/3 inning. Isaac and Chase took the over. So hopefully they're right. I really hope they are. But yeah, what else we got here? I know the game's about to start in a couple minutes, but anything else you guys want to kind of bring up before we take off in a couple minutes?
Yeah.
Looks like
I know SGN Geeks was talking about Snell's struggle. He was talking about there was a video on YouTube. I sent it to you guys. I don't know if you guys ever watched it. He was talking about how part of Snell's struggle is he's relying too much on his arm speed. When he plants his foot to throw, his hand is still in his glove compared to where it was before, where his hand was more out of his glove. So therefore, it's requiring his arm to act more like and try to do it quicker than he did before, and it's causing him to kind of increase the height of almost all his pitches. He has less spin on his curveball, less spin on his slider. Actually, no, the curveball was the thing with the less spin. His arm angle is a little bit lower. Kind of saw that with Paddock last year, so it might take a little bit of an adjustment period for him to get really prepared. But if he can fix all this by, I'd say, the end of August, you can have a really good stretch in September and then into the playoffs, which we really need.
And that's something we've talked about, like all of us, is that's kind of where expectations or what we want from Blake Snell at this point is like, I don't really care what his numbers look like at the end of this regular season. Like he's had a rough year, it's been a big adjustment period for him. If he pitches good in the playoffs, then I'm happy. And I think that's how everyone feels. If the Padres go, they have a wild card game or win the division, fingers crossed on that. But if they go to the wild card game, definitely, I think pretty clearly it's going to be Darvish going out there. But then that next series, if they win that game, which I hope they do, that's Snell's the second game. Like he's the game 2 pitcher of that second series, so he's gonna have a lot on his plate, and we really need him to. We need to trade Gore before he falls more. Ooh, what are you guys' thoughts on that?
You gotta hold. You can't trade someone's value when they're falling. It's something simple in his mechanics. Like they said, it's unathletic, so maybe he had some tightness in his hip or his legs because he does require that large leg kick and really high leg kick to start that drive and everything. So maybe it's as simple as there was something wrong with his hip, his leg that prevented him from driving the ball well. That'll fix his velocity issues. But trading him right now is like trading him at an all-time low. Sure, there's a chance that he might fall a little bit more, but there's the chance that he is that all-star that we all think. And trading him too soon is never a good idea. He is only 21 years old. He has a couple more years to figure it out before we can really get concerned.
The Padres have kind of put themselves in a position to where they're able to wait for Mackenzie Gore, and they're still going to do that at the deadline. They've added a bunch of arms. They're going to have arms coming back like Mike Clevenger. So they've put themselves in a really good position to be able to hold on to Mackenzie Gore, even if his value is pretty low right now. You don't want to trade a guy like Mackenzie Gore at the lowest value. I did see recently his fastball was only at 89 to 91, but that's going to go back up. You don't that talent doesn't just go away. You don't get. It's not like the Toon Squad. Your talent doesn't just go away. He's still going to be able to throw 95, 96 on his fastball. He's still got 4 really good pitches. He's still going to be great, and he's probably still going to be an all-star. It's just a matter of the waiting game. We're just going to have to play the waiting game. Padres have set themselves up for the future, whether it's and like I brought it before, Gore's ETA was 2021, but it doesn't have to be 2021. He can come up next year, the following, still be a great player, and the Padres will still be a great team because they've set themselves up to be able to have Darvish, Snell. I don't know what Musgrove's contract looked like, but Ryan Weathers is still a really good asset for our team. So they've set themselves up for success, whether it's with or without Gore. And hopefully soon it ends up being with him.
Quick question for, I don't know if you guys know, but do you know when Adrian Morejon is going to be back? Is he going to be back at the beginning of next year? Because that's another arm you can toss into that conversation. I think that when the Padres are really going to need Mackenzie Gore, in my opinion, it's 2023. Next year they have a lot of guys. I'm definitely concerned about his fastball at 89 to 91. I do hope it's something that can be fixed. I mean that's what everyone hopes, but I'm definitely concerned now. But I don't think that like you said, they don't need him to come up right now. Now, a month ago, it would have been really, really nice if everyone goes down and they go, well, luckily, Mackenzie Gore's ready to do it. He's ready to make his debut. That would have been really nice. Unfortunately, not the case. Let's not act like Mackenzie Gore has just had the perfect, minor league development. The COVID year is definitely going to really affect some guys in a bad way. I think that's what Mackenzie Gore is a product of. And I think it's going to be interesting because I don't think they even necessarily have to bring him up next year. Someone put in the chat that he's 22 right now and the MLB debut average is 23. Say he comes up at 24 and he's a great pitcher. That doesn't matter at the end of the day. The big thing is him figuring it out. And we've also talked about we would love to see him come up and play. We would like to see him come up and play. But I don't know. Where are you guys at with that? That's just kind of how you feel too? It's not the end of the world, but we would also like to see him come up.
Yeah. And to answer your Morejon question, I would guess to do out this time of year when he came back, because I think it's about a year and a half I'd say up to a year and a half for people to come back from Tommy John. Considering he's a younger guy, he can recover probably a little bit quicker. But we just got to hope that there is no setbacks in his rehab like there was with Anderson Espinosa, who was another young kid that got Tommy John. That was kind of a nightmare situation. So, it's all up on to whether or not the rehab goes smoothly.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Austin Nola's back. Hopefully he rakes today. And the game's about to start, so I think it's time to take off. Really, really important that he's back. We've talked about it a decent amount, but the lineup is finally everyone's there. So hopefully this lineup just starts balling out. Definitely a chance to make up some games and end up being in first place at this season's conclusion. So hopefully they get going, and hopefully we see a sweep this series, because that would be huge. That would be massive if that could be the case. So go Padres, and we will talk to you guys very soon.